Hello everybody, welcome back to another Woodworking Wisdom. Today we're in our little crafty room. We have got a little bit of turning to do, but mostly in here. We're going to make a croaking frog. So it's like a little percussion instrument. It has a zigzag down its back and holds a piece in its mouth, which you scrape down the back and it kind of clicks or clacks along the zigzag bit of wood. It makes almost like a croaking sound. So we're going to give that a go. There are certain types of wood that are going to be better for this. Quite often they're exotics. So the stuff you kind of see the kind of Indonesian carvings in, that stuff works really well. Obviously we're a little bit limited to what we could get, so I'm just going to do mine in a piece of lime, which is going to make it really nice to carve, but it hasn't quite got the same acoustics as you know, something else that kind of they call it resonating. So certain types of timber are going to be better for this, but we're just going to do it in a piece of lime for today. So I've got my little block of lime. We're going to make a little diddy frog, and I'm just going to take you through step by step how we do that. Okay, so we've got a little bit of turning to do. We've got to turn this piece here. This is a little piece of lime, which is the frog's made out of. And this is going to be almost like, it looks like a honey spoon. So it's a bit that goes in the frog's mouth and then you rub it down its back along the little zigzag. And that's what makes the croaking noise. So we've just got a little bit, it's really simple turning to do. Easy peasy. So let's do that. I've got myself a piece of wood and I've drilled a hole in it. And that's the same size hole that we're going to drill the frog's mouth with. So we can use that as a test fit. Okay, so we've got, this is 130mm long. We've roughed down to a cylinder. Now I've taken a couple of measurements. So the hole, we've got our little test hole here. That's as wide as the handle can be, and then we're going to do a little taper so that it sort of jams in this this hole here. So that's the widest it can be, and then it's for the handle, the part that's going to go through. And I think we want probably about 3/4 of that handle to go through, and then just 1/4 to stick out the end. So it's going to be slightly wider at this end, and it's going to taper down on this end. I'm going to take a little bit more off of the diameter, just take it a bit smaller, and then we can make our shape. Oh, extraction's not on there. Some of that excess, I'm just bringing the tool rest a bit closer to the project. We want our beading and parting tool to go bang on centre. So you can test it up near here with the lathe off, and I think we're about right there with our position. Remember, we want about 3/4 of this to be thinner. And I've got that set on my calipers. Just move the dust extractor a little bit so I've got room to go on top of my calipers. And we'll go in around about there. About 3/4, perhaps a little bit more. Just pushing this beading parting tool in on that centre line so the calipers just pop over. Okay, and that's about the same size as our hole now, so I know that if I turn the rest of this down to that side, it should fit in our test piece. So I can just quickly close this section off. up on edge to get into that area there. So that's a perfect kind of friction fit. Okay, so that's pretty much exactly the same size. We want that just to slide through a little bit better, and we want to just introduce a little taper here now. So a little bit more off the diameter, and then we're going to bring this up to a taper so it kind of sticks in this hole. So just a little bit of tidying up to do with the skew. I think maybe a little V-cut here, just to kind of separate that ends drum bit. Uh, 150 grit. And I'm just going to bring the speed down a bit. So going to use a little bit of this Liberon finishing oil. This is the same oil we're going to finish the frog with. Just pop it on the brush and just turn the lathe over by the back there. So just going to give that a few seconds just to pull in. So, down on the bench here, I've got the first frog that I drew out was a little bit big, so I've resized it for my piece of wood, just on the photocopier. And these work really well if you're doing your kind of homemade templates and stuff, because of this grid on the paper, you can make sure everything's the same size and line it all up, so it looks, you know, just how you kind of want it. So really recommend this kind of gridded paper. And like I say, I've made it a bit smaller so it will fit on the block. So let's transfer this onto our block. we're going to cut it on the bandsaw, but in a kind of that 3D kind of cut. Okay, so let's get to it. I've got my bit of carbon paper, and we're going to use that on our little froggy. We've just got a little bit too much excess there on our piece of wood, which is going to make it more difficult when we're cutting it. So what I'll do is I'm just going to trim a bit of that off on the bandsaw just before we get going, and then we'll be back in just a moment. So we've got our block sized. I need to transfer our little frog template onto our piece of wood. So I'm just going to use a bit of carbon paper to do that. We're going to align the kind of under his feet and his belly to the piece of wood, and I'm just folding the paper over, and then that will kind of keep its location a little bit. If I lift it up and just pop our carbon paper in underneath. So just feeling for that edge again. Again, make sure none of this is kind of overhanging anywhere. That looks good. And we're really just doing this outline. So we've got a little V shape here. The front legs. This is the little zigzag along the back. This is where the sound is going to be made by kind of striking or rubbing these. I think I'm going to leave off that last one. So we've done one aspect from that side, and now we need to do the front or the back. I'm just checking which side's most stable. So I'm going to do my transfer up on here, and just like the last one, we want to align that bottom bit to the edge of the block. And again, when I drew this out, I drew separate legs, but then when I thought about it, those are going to come right the way forward. So I'm just kind of doing a curve around that, and we'll put that detail in when we're carving. So just kind of scooping over the top of the leg there. Oh, just hitting on a bit of like a saw line or something. Oops. Let's come the other direction. So we've got a wiggly bit line there, but we can sort that out when we get cutting on the bandsaw. Good. So we've got our frog from two different aspects. Shape there is not quite the same. So let's just sketch that in a little, make that more of a constant curve. Sometimes if you've got bandsaw lines coming across something and you're sketching something in, it can throw your pencil off line and stuff. So I had a bit of a wiggly line there, but I'm just filling out that little kind of shoulder, if you will, to make it more symmetrical. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to look, you know, fairly correct. So we've got a big hole here we need to drill right the way through, so we're going to do that on the pillar drill. Okay, so we're at the pillar drill. Now the travel on the chuck of this one is only 60mm, and we've got an 80mm piece of wood, so we know we're not going to come right the way through, but we can finish that off by hand anyway. 16mm FORSTNER bit there. I've not clamped this down to the table, but if you feel you may lose control, you know, get a fence, get some clamps. You can get little bits for here for your slots, but make sure this is held, you know, really well. What is important is that we clear the swarf as we go. So any of that waste, you know, we don't want that binding up on the drill bit and potentially getting that stuck in our piece of timber. We're going to drill down a little bit, bring the drill bit back out, or the FORSTNER bit back out, and allow that waste out. And I'm just drilling down fairly central to where we've marked it out on the frog. So nice sharp bit this. Doesn't have to be a FORSTNER bit. If you've got a large drill bit, that's going to do the same job. Remember to clear that waste. And I know I can travel the full distance without breaking through the bottom and without coming into the table. Remember, we offered it up. We made sure that drill bit's not going to travel right the way through. If you are going right the way through, make sure you've got a bottom board that's going to support this as it breaks out the bottom. That will give you a cleaner exit. But also that you're not going to foul on the table or anything like that. So I was quite confident I could take that right down to the bottom without it kind of breaking through. Okay, the rest we're going to do by hand on the bench, but we're not far off, and that's going to act as a drill guide if we use this same FORSTNER bit and just do the rest by hand with a drill driver. Okay, so we've drilled our hole on the pillar drill. That's a 16mm hole. We've got our 16mm FORSTNER bit here. Now, remember, the travel of the drill couldn't quite go right the way through, so we're going to finish this off by hand. Just going to get a bit of timber in the vise. That's going to help with the breakout when we come through, and then our project on top. Make sure the drill speed's on high. And we can use this like a drill guide. We try and keep the drill nice and upright. Get rid of that waste just like we did on the pillar drill. Okay, let's have a little look, see where we're at. And we haven't quite made it, but again, look, the travel of the drill bit is at its maximum. It won't go any further, but what we have got is the little spur. So this is much like a lip and spur drill bit. We've got the little spur on the end of our cutter. Maybe we'll go on number 3. So we've got a little spike on the end of the drill bit, which we can now locate. Not sure if you can quite see it, but there's a little hole just here where the drill bits pop through, and we can align our little prong or little spike on our FORSTNER bit, locate it in that, and then just drill through. And that's going to be really thin there, so I'm just going to go really gentle. And we'll probably lose this on the bandsaw cut anyway. That's it, just pop through. But again, really nice, clean drill hole right the way through. We haven't suffered from the finish through putting it on the hand drill or anything like that. Okay, so it looks really good, really nice and clean. Okay, so we're ready to cut this on the bandsaw now. We've got to cut this in 2 aspects. From this way down, we'll cut this shape, and then we'll glue the sides back on, and then we'll cut this more kind of intricate shape. So we're at the bandsaw here. We want to cut this shape out first, then we're going to hot glue those sides back on and then come back and cut this shape. So fairly easy job. We're kind of, again, we're pushing the limits, or you know, coming up to almost the limit of this machine, but it's going to work really well for this. I've got a 3/8/6 blade in there, so 3/8 wide, 6 teeth per inch, and that's going to be a great one for coming around these little curves. There's nothing too much of change in direction, only here and here, which we can do some little relief cuts to work into those areas. So great blade for this sort of job. Yeah. So want extraction on before we get going. So taking the block till we meet our saw mark. Good. So extractor's going off. We need to just glue these two bits back on and then we can cut that face there. Okay, so I've got my hot melt glue gun that's been warming up just to one side there. And we want to just glue these back on. Not going to use tons because it can be a bit tricky to get off afterwards. But we're just going to put a little squiggly line there. Make sure we're good top and bottom, back and front. And we can flip that over. Again, a little squiggly line. Just make sure my glue gun's not falling over there. And then we can reattach this piece, and I can use the hole there to line it up. But again, we just want to check front and back, top and bottom. Good. Now we can take that back to the bandsaw and cut this face. Remember, if you're using a hot glue gun, remember to take it off the plug. It's got no on and off switch, so really important that comes and gets completely isolated and allowed to cool down in a safe spot. Okay, I wouldn't have it around wood shavings and wood dust because it has got a heated element, so we just need to allow that to cool down. Okay, I'll pop that to one side for now though, but really important we unplug that one. So like I say, we're going to cut this face now, our frog actual body shape. Need to just drop down this all this guarding and the guide system, and it's just bringing it back up off the project. Good. Okay, so hit the extractor there, thank you, and we're just going to cut this shape out. We're going to start down here. Remove that little bit of material. So a bit too much of a tight curve to come around there, so I'm doing a little cut there. And then we can come in from a different angle. it out. Your next cut will push any of that material back until it starts falling off the back of the table. And just being very careful with my hand positions, changing as I go. Just going to stop the saw a moment. And get some of those tool bits that are standing up off. Sometimes they can catch on a tooth and be driven back down into the table, so those tool standing bits, I just wanted to get rid of them. And now we're doing our little zigzag. So our little froggy's in the middle here somewhere. We need to just peel off these side bits, so probably have to use a chisel to remove that. But we're not too far off now. Probably at this stage it's worth just taking off these hard corners as well. So we'll do that. It's still nice and stable there. Remember, we've only got this little bit removed out the bottom, so that's still sitting nice and flat on the table. And I'm just going to do this bit by eye. So So we've knocked off the hard corners as well. The rest we can do on the bench with our hand tools and things like that. Good. Okay, so we've this is the shape we've come off the bandsaw with. These I've just sort of teased that off. That's one side of the you know, where we've got our hot melt glue still on there. You can see that, but that's all going to come carved off in a minute. We've got this other side just to take off. I just teased that off because sometimes they are a bit of a pain to get off, and I didn't want to mess it up on camera. So we've teased one side off, and we've got another one to go. But it came off quite easily, so let's pop that back in there. It's still fairly square in the vise, and then just a little kind of woodworking chisel to get in under there. And we can just kind of lever that off a little bit. Good. Okay. So we can get rid of those bits, and you can start to see that shape kind of coming together of the frog. We're going to cut a little piece out the front here, so he's got two front legs, and then also you see where that 3D cut, you know, it kind of changes shape on the back here. So I'm going to extend these little row of spikes, we'll call them, or ridges. We're going to need to extend that back here, and I'll just do that with a Japanese pull saw. Going to just pull that bit of glue off of my chisel before putting it away. Just put its little safety cap on and back on the wall. Okay, so our little froggy is going in the vise. We're going to use our Japanese pull saw. Really nice thing to use, keep everything in line, and I can use these ridges as almost like a guide as to where I want to go. So I can just slightly rock that back, keep it in line with the ridges that are already there, and just bring that curve around. Don't want to go too deep, just down to the bottom of the little low spots. So just relocate that saw. Good. Same thing the other side. Going to use those as a little guide so I can put my finger up against it, get that cut working nice and straight, and then drop the handle. Just slipping in the vise a little, so let's get that held. Like I say, we're just chasing these cuts down to the bottom of the low spots. Don't take that too far or you will have to just carve it back out in a minute. Good. Now at the moment this has got fairly square edges, so it is holding in the vise. If there's different areas or something you wanted to carve more than what we're doing here, you could always glue a little block on the back there. So if we've got something something like that, you could use your hot melt glue gun, probably trim off that excess, glue that on, and then you can hold it in the vise that way. Okay. But for now it's holding really well just in the vise because it's got those square sides. Good. So pull saw back on the wall. Just keep everything nice and tidy and out of the way. Any sharp objects are out of the way. Now we need to cut these off. So I think coming in from the side here, our grain is running this way, so I think I can come in from the sides and just trim these back so we've got that exposed row of taller bits, the ridges. And I think let's go carving chisel. So we've got our carving chisel. This is a 16 mil wide, and this is a one sweep, so it's really flat. Okay, nice flat chisel. This is the KIRSCHEN one, and we just really want to remove these this kind of excess bit on the side here. Nice sharp chisel. If it doesn't lift off of that little chip, we might need to come back down that way. That should just fall off. We want a nice cut rather than kind of tearing it off at the end. So working away from me, you would never bring it round this way and towards yourself. Just turn it round in the vise. So we want to work away from ourselves. Just nice gentle strikes. Like I say, the grain structure is going that way, so we don't want to you know, bite into our ridges. Nice sharp chisel. You shouldn't have to really whack this. I'm just giving it really gentle taps. And I like these types of mallets that you can kind of fit in your hand. It's got a nice bit of weight to it. So we're not trying to get a really good finish here, we're really just cutting off this excess material. And come back down that way. It's just holding on somewhere. There we go. We're going to use a power tool to shape all this in a minute. Get out my old faithful, the power file. That'll make short work of taking out any of these cut marks. Good. So switch it around the vise and do the same thing the other direction. Okay, so we've gotten rid of those kind of excess bits, and we've extended that line of ridges right down the back. You see it on kind of in profile there. You see those spikes running all the way down, and almost like a little Mohican from the front. Okay, good. Now really, that's the kind of basics of it. We're going to do a little bit of shaping, a little bit of tidying up. We'll get rid of these marks here. We're going to do a couple of punch holes for the eyes, but we're not too far off. Remember, we've got to separate this bit. So a quick and rough central. So we're 70 mil there, so we're going to be 35 mil is going to be your center. Just going to roughly put it there. And then we can gum a little bit each way. And then one more little measure. Good, we're about 30 mil wide on each of these feet. So we're going to pop it in the vise this way now. Go back for our pull saw. And just running off my knuckles, I'm putting my thumb down on the workpiece, running the saw off my knuckle, and just keeping an eye here and here. Sometimes worth just blowing away the dust and bring that in nice and close. Same job here on our other pencil mark. So I just made a little scratch line on there. That's perfect. Now, I think we can just knock this out with a chisel. Bit wide, that one. Let's get something a bit thinner. I'll tell you what, let's go for our woodworking chisels. I've got my Rider Comfort Grip chisel here. These are all really nice and sharp. And I'm not going right from the bottom straight away. Let's get that a bit further down in the vise, give it a better grip. Not doing it up too much, we don't want to bruise it. Just being a bit careful as we go through. I don't want it snapping. That's cut really nicely across the grain there, so I'm a bit more confident I can come closer down. Just turn the chisel over so it travels nice and flat through. Good. Just a little slither along there. That's got that, and while I'm here I'm just going to tidy that up ever so slightly. Try and leave that nice and clean. The less work we have to do with the abrasives, the better, really. So now we've got a couple of little feet on the front of our frog. You see the shapes are all starting to kind of come together now. Again, let's just remove that glue while we're here with this chisel. Get rid of that hot melt glue. Just going to take that off. Doesn't matter if you take a little bit of the timber off as well. We are going to sand this all over in a minute. But what we don't want, because we're using abrasives, is this glue to kind of bond to it. And when that mixes with the wood dust that we're kind of sanding off, it can really clog the little belt on the power file, or any other type of sander. If you're using an orbital sander or something like that, if there's a finish or a glue, they can really clog the papers. So just try to get the worst of it off first. Where I am here, there's not much support for the chisel, so I'm going to turn it around in the vise, and then I've got all of this area to rest the chisel on to keep everything nice and straight, and I can be a bit more kind of confident with it. I can rest it. Good. So that's our hot melt glue off. Lovely. Nice little shape, this one. Quite a dumpy little frog, but that's cool. I like that. Just a little bit here. Being really careful how I hold it. And just doing a little kind of side swipe with the chisel. Pop it back in the vise if you're not confident with that. Good. Okay. So just a little bit more shaping to do. We'll get our punch out for the eyes, and we're nearly there. You could carve legs, back legs in there. I think let's do a little suggestion of a back leg. So bringing that along like so. And same on the other side. Again, these don't have to be perfect, but try and keep them fairly symmetrical. That's coming around down here, and then we've got a little foot that stops just before that. So let's whiz those in. So just a little quick tidy up. So I've just brought out a couple of chisels. These are the KIRSCHEN ones again. We've got an 11-16. Sorry, a 16 wide 11 sweep. So quite the sweep on that one. Quite a tight curve. And then we've got an 8-9. Okay. So a couple of little curves that are going to hopefully fit in with what we're doing here. So we've got the foot shape there, and then we've got our nice flat one which we can use as well to start to put in a little kind of break line. And we're not going very deep with this. This is just a suggestion. It'll create a little shadow line, and just using the right tool to kind of give us that shape. Need a bit more of a slight curve for that one, but we can achieve that using our straight. Oops, wrong mallet. So we're going to use a straight one, just driving in the corner of it really, and then twist the position of it to come around that curve. Let's get something slightly more curved. Perfect. So there's a nice gentle curve on this chisel. Okay. I'm going to flip it over, do the same the other side. So we want our nice curved one there. Straight. This section here is pretty straight as well, so I'm just going to knock that in, and then we'll go back to introducing that slight curve. It's shifting a little bit in the vise, but I'm not doing any heavy carving, so I'm happy with how it's working. Just use the corner there. Another little placement there. Good. Now I think we are going to have to glue a little block on after all, because we want to carve down in this area. So let's just quickly whiz something on the bandsaw. A little block that we're just going to stick there, and that's going to allow us to grip the piece but still allow us into this area. So just glued this little block of glue on with a hot melt glue gun. That's going to help me hold it in the vise. It doesn't have to be really strong, and I don't really want to put a screw up through our little froggy. So I've just hot melt glue on. We're not going to be hitting this with a mallet. We're just going to just gently pair off up to this line. And here, just to create a little shadow line, really, not to full on shape the legs. These are going to be a bit kind of stylized, I guess. So just running the bevel on the back of the timber and just bringing it up to that little stop cut. Each time just gently pairing those bits off. We don't need to with a sharp chisel, we don't need to hit this with a mallet. Don't know if you can see now, but my hands aren't on the handle of the chisel at all. It's all on the steel. That's given me a little bit more control of where the chisel is. So a bit in the way of the camera there, so we just had a little shifty round, just so you can see what's going on here. Just taking a little bit off at a time, so we don't have to chase it back with another stop cut. So just severing those fibres off at the back. So sometimes you might have to just chase it around a little. Just so we got a clean cut, and we don't have to get in here with abrasives too much. Good. So just a suggestion of a leg at the back there. Let's do the other side. It's got a tiny bit there I want to get at. Good. And these pencil marks will just sand off. Okay, so onto the power tools. Let's pop all our chisels away. Make sure they're nice and safe back on our storage unit, and then we can attack this with the power tools, with the power file. So I'll just grab that. Okay, so we've done all the carving with the sharp chisels and things like that. They've all been put away now, out the way. We don't want them rolling around on the bench and things, so swapped over to my power file. This is a great little tool, love it. And I've got my air filter as well. This can get really, really dusty. If it gets too dusty in here, you know, even with the air filter running, I may switch on to my respirator, but we'll give it a go, see how it goes. There's not too much to come off of this, so we're just kind of tidying things up and making things smooth. Okay, good. Well, let's do it. Pop on my air filter here. Let's get it on the high speed. It's got 3 speeds, and we want that to be pulling in air from here. Okay, so we want to knock off these kind of harder edges. If you want, you could put little kind of facets on it, so we could do that as a flat here and a flat there. I think that's the way we'll go. And then we can shift this in the vise and just work on this back area with the little ridges on. We'll get rid of the worst of that, and then really just a little tidy up and a couple of punch holes and we're there. Okay, so let's start on that front part, is a kind of face, if you will. So I'm just going to run this down along that ridge, and potentially put it into a little flat. I think we're going to do 2 flats rather than try and make it a curve. So we got a little flat that side. Actually, I'm going to work this way, so it's throwing the dust towards the... And then I'm going to just work this back along the body. We'll blend in these as they come round. Going to bring it up on that little block of section, just because my tool's struggling to come down here with this motor part. And then open up the vise and we can tip this down, and then we can just work on these 2 ridges, and then we're not far. Again, I'm just going to soften this edge. So just check it over. Looks pretty good. We've gotten rid of all these ridges down the back here. Potentially a little bit more blending to do. I might just knock off this corner because it looks a bit like it's sticking out, but otherwise everything else is fairly well blended. You might want to make this a bit more rounded on the front, but I quite like that angular look to it. So yeah, nearly there. And you're probably going to want to hand sand this with some abrasives and stuff. I've got a little bit here I just want to tidy up. Do that with the power file, just running against those little notches. And also I'm going to take off the very sharp edges of this so they're a bit more rounded on top. Now the grain is running, where's the grain here? So the grain's kind of running up through this way. So it should be fairly strong, but I'm just going to take the very sort of tops or the crowns of these little points away so that it kind of rubs a bit smoother when you're dragging that stick along. So a bit here to do, and we're going to knock those back, and then it's the finishing touches. Okay, so we're pretty much done. There is perhaps a bit more hand sanding to do to get you know, get all these little facets and potentially a couple of little bits here and there. We'll finish that in our own time and then cover it in an oil, but I just want to show you the last little bits we want to do with our tooling. We've got a set of punches here, and I want the round one, oh, right on the corner. So we're going to take this little round punch and we're going to use that to create the eye shapes. I'm going to use a little rubber hammer. And I'm kind of eyeballing this from the top. Oops, we come off our block. So let's get rid of that. We can hold it on the flats of the body like we were before. That saves us having to do that in a minute though. So let's realign our punch. And just create that little round. And what I'm doing is looking, if we go on camera 3 there just a moment, I've got my eye shape here. You can't really see it on camera, but I'll show it up close in a moment. We've got an eye shape here. I'm kind of looking across the top, try and keep it in line, and try and keep that spacing from this center line the same. I think I'll go a bit deeper with that, and I'll do the same this side. Better to do this in one bold stroke than lots of little taps, but it wasn't quite where I wanted it at. So you can see his eyes there. He's a little bit googly eyed, but that's all fine. And again, you could carve these in. You could use a rotary burr. You could use pyrography on this. I've seen some really nice ones online where they have these kind of tribal tattoos to them. Oh, one last thing, just going to quickly skim across the back of those. Remember we said we were going to take that hard edge off of those. So that's a quick job. So there we go. Our little frog. Big wide mouth on it. Again, take a little bit more time if you want to put more detail. Potentially you could put these legs in deeper. You could paint this. Do pyro. All sorts of cool stuff you can do with this. But this is the basics of it. Just getting rid of that last little bit of glue. It sits nicely on the table. This is his bit that kind of strikes along the back that makes it go ribbit. And if we pop it down on the bench here, let's move my cutting mat slightly, and then when you strike it across the back, it makes that ribbit noise. Okay, so I was putting my microphone closer to it then, hopefully you can all hear it. But quite a cool little thing. Try different timbers to get different sounds. But yeah, a little bit more sanding and a coating of oil, and you have a lovely little percussion instrument there. Good. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll if you enjoyed this content, please give us the thumbs up, subscribe and share. And thanks again for watching another Woodworking Wisdom. We'll see you again very soon.